What we're going to review today are 10 stocks that I think have the most potential to move next week. Now, they need to be triggered, and we're going to get into that and discuss that. As people have watched my videos before, they know that I talk about very actionable moves and things that have to happen in order for you to be in those trades, not just, hey, these are 10 stocks to look at. So these are ones that I think have the most effect next week. As a little different this week is we're going to be looking at some pullbacks. Usually we look at the breakouts, but with what came in, we really need to look at some pullbacks. And you can see even here, like I just happen to have the NASDAQ up. I mean, you can see we're getting comfortable under the 50-day. This is not where you want to be. So you need to, on the cues, you need to hold here before we go higher. But this 312 levels, the people that have subscribed to the newsletter know I've been talking about this level for a while now, and it really needs to hold. But with that said, let's get into it. So we're going to drill down into these, and we're going to look at them a little bit on weeklies, and then we're going to look in them on dailies and look at different bar strategies as well. So let's just get into this with AMC. I think this needs to be on everybody's radar for the week, and here's my opinion of this. And I covered it a little bit yesterday, but I really want to get into it today. So the fact that we are closing again above the 771 level, and this is my volume, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. And my risk is obviously a close below the 771 range. And once we can get back over this level, this $12, 13 is in play, 1750 is in play. These lines, this is very doable. And one of the reasons behind that is you see how we broke this right shoulder channel, right? And we come over here. See how you have like this little, let me draw this for you real quick so you can just see it. But you're really in this range, right? Between here and here, okay? And you needed to break one way or another. And for the longs and the bulls, it's breaking this way. So we're over this again for the second time on the second highest volume it's ever had, which is going on now without the short squeeze. So you really need to look into that. And let's just drill into this for a minute by just looking at plain bars. And you can see very clearly what's going on here and the power of this move. So I do like to look at bars a little bit differently every once in a while because I think it just gives you a clearer picture of what's going on. But if you drill into this even more, on the daily, you can see rallied, one day came down, sold. We didn't even close below where we were earlier on the week. So what's crazy about AMC, and this is one of the things that I talk about on Twitter a little bit more, is relative strength. Okay, AMC's relative strength is stronger than the market right now. And why would I say that? Because we're above all these moving averages. The 5 and the 8 on the daily are actually crossing and pointing up. So, and as everyone knows, that I'm way more technical than I am fundamental, but this is showing real progress and that this could really be something. And it could head back to this $13 level. So I would strongly recommend that you look at this one and keep it on your list. And just look for the higher highs. I mean, when you start seeing that, it's going to start coming into play again. So this is one that I've been talking about as a top pick for the year, actually. And I just really want to get into this. So we're going to look at the weekly. Okay, and this is Arete. And I usually stay away from crypto, but crypto has gotten really, really big as far as trading. And Grayscale has these ETFs, or the ETNs they call them, I think, to get around it. But let's just look at this for a moment, get rid of all the indicators, and truly look at what's going on here. Okay, you have a support level here that you just cracked. You broke above this, and as people follow the newsletter, when you break these trend lines, you can really explode out. And you can see what happened here. We just opened, ran to it, and then pulled down. So this is a clear rejection. But that doesn't mean it's over. If you look at what's going on here, you can see that this line right here, plus you have these little breaks, if we get over this, we're really going to move. But what we need to see is we need to see some level of support. But there's a little, look at this line. And this is why I always look at different time frames. Look at that line. Look where it stopped. So if we can stop here, right? If we stop here, this is a very interesting place. And one of the other patterns that we always talk about is undercutting a support. So we call them boomerang patterns because they propel us higher. But if you undercut a support here, and when you undercut that level, what's going to wind up happening is it's going to propel us higher. It actually swings back up. And you can see that off of levels, and you can see that off of indexes as well, meaning like index averages. So if I had put in the indicators like the moving averages, sometimes you can bounce off of those. But this is clearly heading, in my opinion, this is setting up to go higher. And the fact that you're against this weekly line, and that's where we stopped, and now we're wedged in like this, is only confirming that this probably continues. And you can see, the breakdown here on the daily for this ET, for Ethereum. Let me just put this back up in here. THE. So you can see that. Now you're rolling, and now you have this little dreaded H pattern, but these undercuts, this is what you're looking for, and you can really see this little trend right here line. And I can draw it real quick just so we can go through it. Right? I mean, even on the daily, there's all these little lines, right? And we're heading. You stop here. You can see the other one's probably right here. So I really think that you're going to push here. I think you're going to undercut and shake people out. Now, the beauty of this trade is that if you're wrong, you're going to know real fast that you're wrong. So I have what I'm looking for is I'm looking for it to flip higher. All I need is a higher high on the daily for me to become interested. And then if I break below the low of this line, right? If I break below the low, I know I'm wrong. And the trade is literally that simple. And you just want to look at volume and make sure that you have above average volume. And usually I'll drill down even to a 15-minute chart to look at that. But definitely look. I mean, the crypto's they're at a crossroads. They need to make a decision, and that decision is going to come this week. They're either going to rally because they're all wedged in these bases, or they're going to break. So it's a really interesting little point to buy. This is very, very interesting to me for a couple different reasons, and let's get into this on a weekly first. But we had ARK buying a huge amount of this over the past week and into a really crappy tape. I mean, just an awful tape, where breadth was 9-1 on the market. The worst breadth usually is 10-1. So there was just nowhere to hide this week. And I think that's really important to get out there. Now, we stayed in the middle of this range, which is not the best, but we still have an all-time high closing. And I want to point out one thing, and I've mentioned this in the past before. You see how you have this volume, and this volume spike is over everything else? This is really intriguing to me. This usually, when you see volume like that, if the next volume week is less than that and it's red, it shows that you have capitulation and the sellers are gone. It's a clear indication of exhaustion selling. For exhaustion selling to happen while you're hitting an all-time high, like this is usually huge. Usually you see exhaustion, pick something that is blown up. Usually you'll see this exhaustion on the way down. And then that puts at the bottom in that way. But to see this divergence of massive selling on the week and we're still at an all-time high is saying a lot. So you can really see how once we broke this 958 level, that was it, we were gone. And if we drill down into this, just in the daily, you can see this wedge setting up. So again, this is clear. We came down to this level. We came down to the 1696 and the lower end of this channel. And now we're going to try and break this channel. Very simple idea. If I break this channel and it's got volume and meets my other triggers and my process, this is something that I would be interested in because there's a huge channel here. And for those that can't see it, we'll just start here with it. And you can see how we failed the upper channel. Very similar to when we got out of TIGR in the 30s, for those that get the newsletter. And the newsletter's free, and there'll be a link in the description if you want to follow along. I would recommend that you do. It comes out 3 times a week, and there's a lot of actionable ideas in there. But look how we're doing here. Look what's going on. Boom, we have the failed attempt, and this is so clear to the people that have been following along. When we flipped this line and we flipped it on Telray, we made a killing, right? We were up like 180% in 10 days. When you fall down into it, you have to test, regroup, and that's all we're doing. This is very simple stuff. It's called a back test. Doesn't mean it's over. We're just back testing support, making sure it's there. Okay, we're comfortable. We have support there, and then it goes higher. So this is pretty clear to me what's going to happen. We just need to break this and trigger the move. Now, speaking of Tiger, and I just want to get rid of all the indicators on this, and this is at a crossroads. This needs to do something, and I want to get rid of all the annotations on this. So we're going to clear everything off real quick, and I'm just going to pop this right back on. And I just want to look at price for a moment. So, and again, this is a great week to look at stuff because we have the weeklies and the monthlies are out because of the end of the month. But look at what's going on here. This is one down week, and you just have to kind of put that in your head for a minute. Now, where did we close? Okay, we closed right at 23.89, right? We closed right here. So what is that telling us? Well, this is a pretty easy spot that if we don't hold, we're going lower. This provides us with the opportunity, and we don't have it just based upon this, but this provides us with the opportunity of a low risk entry. Okay, well that sounds great, Tony. Now what? Okay, here you go. See that? Okay, let me draw it even better. You can see through here how you reject it, right? You can see this. Well, hopefully you can see it. If you can't see this, you can see how you're rejecting here. And now you're wedged right here. So if I can break a higher high here, and one of the things that I say is clone this and throw this over. And you have to clone these lines so that they have the same trajectory. That's how you know where your channel is. But here's what's interesting about this, just looking at price and nothing else, and we'll throw in the bells and whistles in a minute. This is my little pattern, but if I break major support, I went out of the way. But if I can trigger up here, I have like 2 points of risk. And if I can pop back into this channel, which we now can all see, and we all remember from before, this is where we trimmed last time after being at 17, but you can see, right, how you can pop back in this. And just for giggles, we're going to clone this and just see where it lands, right? And you can kind of see where you're going to pop back into. So this could literally break here, trade up, and come right into this and still not be in the channel and be in the 30s for 2 points of risk. And and all I'm doing is a lower channel retest. This is the kind of stuff that you need to be looking at when you're in a market that's falling. Look for the stuff that's already come in that you're interested in. Now, that doesn't mean that this is going to be the next leader, because this has to build. It's got a lot of building to do. But there is a solid, if this can clear this, there's a solid 10 points in here. And then we could stay in it, move the stop up, and then see if we continue. Usually when you have little corrections like this, you have new leaders. So that we may get new leaders. And I think there's a couple out there that I'm going to point out in this today. So here we are. And everybody knows that we've been in this one, and I love this stock. And I'm just looking at price right now on this one. And on Tiger, I don't see the need to throw in the bells and whistles, just move ahead. So what's really interesting about this is we have just had massive selling. And we have had a buyer out there that has just been all over it. She has been buying the heck out of it. Kathy Wood is now the second largest shareholder of the company. Her time frame is 3 to 5 years. If your time frame is 3 to 5 years, that's great. But you need to keep that to account. She can't just go out there and buy millions of shares at any time. She needs to wait until somebody sells. And you have some very large sellers right now. Now, just on the weekly, you need to hold this 2250. If we crack this, you're going to roll. You're going to have this H pattern and you're going to roll. But it provides a very interesting spot for us, right? It provides a really interesting spot for us. Look at that. Okay, so I think that with this kind of cross in here and this convergence, if we can hold here on the weekly at this 2250, you could trade this and we could try and trade this back to the high of this type of the channel. Now, we still have to get through this 29, but this provides the entry. And just to point this out, you could be in this trade while it's in this range. See this range? And you'd still have an inside week. And we can throw the bells and whistles in now and take a look, right? This is just a nasty red bar, but we're holding it, right? And now we have convergence points, which we love. We love convergence points because people are trading different stuff. And of course, now, you know, this is more whistles. Now we have this. We have the 21 week that's forming here. And I just want to point this out. See this volume? I just talked about this. This can lead, when you have high volume like this, we're starting a bottoming process where everybody just puked it out. And now we're rolling again. But look at this. So we're getting ready to shake out here, and it's decision time on what it's going to do. And I'd watch that 22.5 level. This was just a monster week on this, and this is just setting up to go a lot higher. So let's just go through this really quickly, and this is definitely one where everybody needs to be aware of this. And I'm going to redraw these lines just because I want everyone to understand them and why they are where they are. So let's remove the segment line, and I'm going to leave that volume line there for a minute. Let's get rid of the indicators. So let's get into this. Okay, this just had a monster week. And we were all discussing this on Twitter on the fundamental side between this and the CCIV that's out there right now. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, I'd recommend that there's a link in the bio. But so if you look here, right, 2160, you fail, can't close above it here, fail. Looks like we're going to fail again. And then we go. And I just want to point this out as well for people that like doing the pullbacks. We just talked about these boomerang trades, right? Here's one, and there it went, right? Undercut support makes you think that it's over, and then goes from there. So this is really something that you need to be paying attention to. And I want to preface all this. At the end of this video, I'm going to run through the cues very quickly and just point something out that everybody needs to be aware of. Because if the indexes don't work, it's going to be harder for us to get our stock positions off and have them be profitable. The probability of them working drops if the market's coming in. So you can see this. Now, we talked about these kinds of patterns. And let's just get into this again. Come on. There we go. So we have flipped the major channel line. Okay. By doing that, we're setting ourselves up here. We're setting ourselves up for a monster push. Now, does that mean that I buy it here? No, not at all. What it means is at this level, I can do this trade a couple different ways. I can wait for it to pull back to this and see if it holds. If I flip over this line, I'd have an outside week. That would lead me to believe that we're going to push even higher. And then what you could do is then drop down into dailies and look for support levels. And then the other thing that you could also do is if that's not far enough, you can go down into hourlies or 15 minutes and see if you can find support levels there. And you see how this just paints a beautiful picture just by using just price when you know what to look for? I mean, there it is, 1 hour. There's that move. As soon as you broke that, right? So when you start understanding this, it really helps you get into positions a lot sooner. And you can drill down into this. You could drill into a 15-minute with this as well. But let's just keep rolling along because we still have a couple really good ones that I think are lining up on the week. So we throw in the bells and whistles now, and you can clearly see all these moving averages are pointing up. Look at this volume on the day. We usually trade how much? 20 million. This is an average volume line of 30 days, which is what I'd recommend people use. 30 days, not 10, not 50. 30 days. It tells you what's going on over a month. And you can also see the acceleration in it, right? But now on top of that, you're at roughly here, I mean, you traded 5x volume. 5 times the average daily volume was traded on Friday in a really bad tape. That lets you know that people want to accumulate it, and now they're starting to try to accumulate it at any price. Does it mean it can't come down and test? Nope, it absolutely can, and that would just provide us an opportunity. So people are going to find it odd that I'm talking about this one as well. Now, out of both of these, the Bitcoin and the Ethereum, they're two completely different trades. So with Bitcoin, you've already come out of, we're going to remove all these segment lines. Remove all this too. And we're going to just start over so that everyone can see how we got to places. Okay, so what's important about this is a couple things. We're at a major crossroads here. And I'm just going to show this on the weekly first and drill down into just price. Just price, right? That's it. Let's get rid of the bells and whistles for a minute. So what does this do for us? Well, it does a couple things. It just lets us look at what is really going on here. Okay? This is simply a weekly chart, price only. And this is at a crossroads. This is at it's got to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up, and it's time for it to figure it out. So just look at how many different lines we have crossing here, right? You have these two just coming in. And where was this here? See how the trajectory, and I talk about this in previous videos, see how the trajectory of this is changing? This could have a violent snap back. What this point does is if we break this, we're going to here. We're going to probably over a week or two or whatever, we're going to retest 28,000. There's no question about it. But what this does do is provide us a spot here. Now let's just throw in some of these bells and whistles. Okay, this is a nasty, nasty bar. And if you take out the low of this bar anyway, you should be out of it. But with this kind of crossing that's going on here and convergence, it provides us a huge opportunity to get in cheap if this is going to turn around. Now, mind you, this is what we traded on the week, 55,000 to 41,000. What's interesting about this is you could still, off of here, be up 20% on this trade and still be an inside week, and it could still turn around and roll the other way. But it provides a very interesting entry point, and that's why I'm pointing it out. And just real quick, let's just throw in these indicators, and you can see how we closed above the 8-week and trying to close above the 5. And look at the volume, right? When you start seeing spikes like this, again, we mentioned this, that may be capitulation. That might just be weak hands, and now it's time to move forward. And you can see us here on the daily, and it paints a different picture, but a very similar picture, right, to what we're discussing. And we can clone this real quick. And you can see that right there. So you can see how you're in here and how you're coming right to this level. And then also right here, you can see again, just that trajectory that we just talked about, right? And how that trajectory is pushing even higher. Come on. So this point is really important. And what I would look for, I'd look for a close over this 21 week. I wouldn't even need a higher high or 21 day. And then I think we would go because that's going to get me out of this falling wedge channel, and falling wedges are bullish. And then we would push. And then there's certain levels that you have to retest, like this 48 level. But we're setting up for this. And this is, when you have a crux like this and you have these convergences, pay attention to them. And that gets us to this one. And people know my position on this. If you follow me on Twitter. And the daily is going to leave a little bit to the imagination, or the weekly rather. But let's just go through this really quickly. And I like looking at them like this. I just think they look better. So let's just go through this real quick. Okay. This was the last time where everybody said it was going to be different, okay? And if you go through the Twitter feeds, I shorted it here, and I was pretty vocal about it. And the time frame, for you to go from 40 to 80 in a week and not think that you're going to get a pullback, is just ludicrous, you know, and if you play them right, you can do fairly well with them. But what transpired here? We just went to the 5-week. This is not the end of the world, just to go from 80 to 43. It's the end of the world if you bought up here. But at this point, we didn't even break the 5-week. So let's just drill into this on a daily so you can see exactly what I'm saying. And let's just get rid of the indicators again and the other bells and whistles, and let's just talk about price. So all these lines were in there from before, okay? And I'm just going to leave them, but here's that boomerang that we talked about before, right? How you undercut support, flip this, and there's another little pattern right here with the wedge. And you can see how this got us, you know, it gave us the ability to get in at like 18, 20 bucks. But, you know, that's not where we're at now. So this is where you're at now. And we're right on this support level on the daily. We're right there again. Very similar. And here's our undercut of a major support line, right? So this could be setting up just like this setup. And I just want to show this real quickly so you can understand this. And then we're going to go through the rest of them. But you see how we did that here, and then we flipped? Okay, we're setting something up very similar here on a much larger scale, but we have to hold. If you don't hold, we're going down to here, and we're going to go fast. So you have to honor your stops when you look at trades like this. Now let's just throw in the bells and whistles. Okay, so, and we're sitting right at the 21-day. You get above this line, and that's your trigger, and we can go to the lower end of this channel and push. And still by getting the lower end of this channel, we're at 61. Not even waiting for the channel break, and that gets us in here at 43, 44. Really being a lot higher, I think. I think it'd be even closer to 48. And, you know, it gives you 12 points. I think this is something that you need to look on your radar if you're looking to be aggressive and if you see Bitcoin bounce. That looks the best of all those stocks. Now, this is just a classic breakout setup. And it could really go here. And we're going to get rid of all this for a moment. Just really drill into this. So, look here. Okay, and just look really close. And, you know, I run a lot of charts on the week, at the end of the week. And, you know, I look for things like this. And this is very interesting. You see how you're at the 70.56, you're right at the high. You never closed above that except back here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 weeks, and I have not closed above it. Guess what I did in an awful tape? Closed above it, right? So when you do this, it is a clear indication that a push could be coming. Very simple trade. You are looking for a break right above that 72 level. I mean, and you should be able to see that level, right? You break above that, and this is going to run. And what types of areas are we looking at? Some of the messages that I get are about how do I pick targets, things like that. You have a little bit of resistance right into here. Not a lot, because this is kind of a falling down bar, and we're going to get into that in a minute, but I don't want to waste a ton of time on it. This bar, this trajectory is really off because it's on a wick, and that means usually that there was not a lot of volume that was traded in this section. So the probability of this line being an issue is somewhat negated. So, but I could do that for a video in another time. But see what we're setting up here? Now let's throw in the indicators. What are they all doing? They're all starting to turn up. The 5 and the 8 crossed. You see this? We did a whole indicator video on this one particular pattern. See how it acted here? See what happens when it crosses here? This is setting up. Okay, and let me just throw this up here again. This is setting up. And when this breaks, this whole channel that's right here, this real channel, not that wick channel, but this real channel is here. So just to put that into perspective, you can see where this could be heading. This could have a major, major move. And on top of all that, look at this volume. Look at the volume on this. We usually trade 1.3. You're at 3x. So you need to look at that. Now this is one that I put in the newsletter. And I even stated, if for some reason you were stopped out, you need to be looking at this again. So this is something that I just think has enormous potential. We had possibly, this is a monthly chart, we had possibly the worst earnings report this company had in a long time, with daily average users dropping, people coming off, slower growth, all kinds of issues that I'm not going to bore everybody with. What did the stock do? It was a honey badger. It went straight up. It went up 20 points in a month in this tape. And that tells you a lot. Okay, now this was also a huge buy by ARK and some other funds that are adding to this. I'm going to explain to you why, and that's why I'm going to use a monthly. This is a 7-year base. Okay, breaking a 7-year base is like turning a big ship. When it happens, it just gets momentum and it goes that way. When you break smaller bases, think of them as smaller ships. But when you start breaking monthlies like this, these turns don't usually come back as fast. And this provides a really interesting opportunity. Now we're going to just overlay some bells and whistles with this. And I give a little write-up on this in the newsletter, but just look at this and look at the monthly volume. It's substantial. Substantial buying in this tape is telling you something. Now, based upon, people ask this, and that's why I'm explaining it. And if you have questions, please comment in the YouTube videos, because then I can see them and I answer everybody. But I'm doing this to educate as well as to give really good ideas. So you can see here this little range. But what happens when we break it? Boom, we're gone. And I think that continues. But let's get back to the price action. See this? Okay, you are down here, 14. Let's call it 15, just to make the math simple. 73. Okay, you have a 60-point difference. Just on that cup alone, people are going to give you a 125, 135 target. And it's on a major stock, so you're going to have institutional ownership all over this, especially if this tape gets worse. So let's just keep going. This is APPS. And at the end of this, I do want to just run through the cues real quick so everyone can understand the indexes. And this is on the weekly. We break this, you're pushing. And then you're going to push right into the upper channel again. We talked about this pattern earlier. You see this line? See how we're respecting that line? We're still in this tape, as ugly as it is, are still holding the upper end of the previous channel. That's huge. It's absolutely huge. So here's the wedge, right? And I just want to show this because this already triggered on Friday. So here's the wedge and here's the break. So you can see you're already above it. This is a very simple trade, okay? You get a higher high here, 85, 86, swings up to here, pops back in the channel. So your first target on this is 97, off it clearing this 86. So you have 10 points there, right? And then if you pop back into this channel, there's a lot more room to go. But if I break back down on the downside of this particular wedge, and this wedge is very significant due to the volume, but do that for another time. If I break back down into this, I know that I'm just not ready, and then I can just blow out the trade and go to the next one. So that's it. That's 10 ideas that I think could really move next week and ones to keep on your radar. And let's just go through this on the weekly really, really quickly, and we'll just wrap it up. But this is really important, and I just want to emphasize this, and I'm just going to show this here. And let's get rid of all the indicators because I just want to talk price for a minute, okay? So you can see this channel, right? And we duplicate these channels, clone them, and I'm just going to pop this up here just for a minute, right? Because it's still kind of sloppy. And there's another channel right here. But here's what I want you to see. Not only that you have this channel and then how we tried to break out of it and we're not able to, and really haven't even gotten to the top of this channel yet. This is called a frozen rope, okay? And it's not the best pattern in the world. So frozen rope just literally means, you have this area and then it just opens and closes, and this is on the weekly. Frozen rope patterns are not positive. It is not something that you want to just go, oh boy, I'm going to jump into. You need to swing back into this channel. And we haven't done that yet. So keep that in mind. Now, if you see a lower low as I've stated in the newsletter repeatedly, if you see a lower low here, that means we got through the 312 level that I have been preaching we need to hold, which is roughly right around here. And if we break that, you're going to do it fast. You're going to go to 304. You're going to see this go really fast if it rips down here. Now, what does that do for you? It means just be cautious with these top 10 ideas we went through. As always, please reach out to me and send me comments via YouTube. And if you could do me a huge favor and like the video, because I want to get this in front of as many people as possible to show what needs to be done and to educate on how it takes to be, or what it takes to be a truly successful investor or trader consistently and generate profits. Thanks as always. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.